My task this morning is to tell you about the advantages in terms of education in the academy model. Now, academisation is a long word, it's a big word, and in fact we're actually talking about a big deal and we're talking about a new deal. And I use the deal part because academisation sounds a bit like Americanisation, and the New Deal in the States had huge impact during the 1930s. And I believe that academisation and the creation of the independent state school will have that sort of impact on this country. But of course it is a challenge. It's a challenge for head teachers, it's a challenge for governing bodies, and it's a challenge for people like me who lead large organisations that are intervening to drive up standards and the quality of the educational experience of the young people of this country. Now, if you go into your own school, where lies the problem, right? The problem lies is that the local authority can intervene and block. The governing body can blame the local authority, the head can blame the governing body, or everybody can blame each other. And what this government has done, and this is government policy, is to say, sort it out yourselves. And that is a new strategy. Accountability is being pushed down. And you know, over the years, head teachers have said, for God's sake, get the bureaucracy away and let me get on with it. Well, now, here is the chance. And that is very important. There are 396, as of this month, sponsored academies, of which we have 21. And probably we are the biggest or the second biggest of all the sponsors. There's another 900 converters. That takes you up to around the 1300 mark. And there are 700 converters or sponsored academies in the pipeline. I mean, Michael Gove said very early on in this government, at a breakfast briefing I had with him, there will be no turning back, because by the end of this Parliament we will have reached the critical mass. And in fact we are nearly there now. The local authority capacity to carry out the functions which it had in the past has been eroded significantly. And where is the new middle? Well, that is a debate for the future. But of course, what we're talking about here is your piece of this jigsaw, your independent state school. You need real commitment to a new vision for education, which any additional resources will help you with. And therefore, the vision for your school as an independent state school is absolutely crucial. Because as someone who's helped to build the academy brand, and it does stand for something, and all the stats show that schools that haven't shifted for years and years and years, under academy, when they become academies with sponsors, have moved forward significantly, and that is shown clearly in all of our schools. I mean, the 7th worst performing school in the country we took over 5 years ago when we were set up in Thurrock, and we have someone from Thurrock here, so he knows. The local authority said it's like a black hole into which we poured resources and nothing came out of it. Exclusions were 969 and nil. Attendance was 84%, it's now 93%. 5 plus 8 to C, including English and Maths, was 11%, it's now 56%. And headline 5 plus 8 to C is now 93%, from somewhere about 18%. The big thing, as I've told the principal, is actually the transformation in the way in which children think of themselves, their community thinks of themselves. And now we have 2 applicants for every place, and there are questions asked in the House of Commons. I live in Tilbury, why can't I get my child into a Tilbury academy? So why do academies work? Well, they work because there's increased focus, there's increased accountability, there are increased freedoms, and there's increased resource. Not as much as it used to be, but it is still there. Interestingly, we were told earlier you might expect 300,000. Well, the range in our LACSEG goes from 880,000 in one authority to 330,000, and the mean will be 550. These are secondary schools at around 900. Primary schools, having looked at it, actually range from one form entries at around 120,000 extra, for two forms at 180,000, and again, depending on the local authority, that will vary. But those are significant sums, which enables you to bring about change. Now, I believe in the Academy brand, and I've told the Secretary of State, and I've told the Schools Commissioner that I'm worried about brand dilution, and I'm worried about brand damage. Because if a school converts simply for getting extra cash, and it doesn't bring these other things which are set out, they're actually damaging the brand. Because Academy does stand for something, and what Liz was saying to me, well, we've got to ensure that the converters take on board the brand elements of what Academy stand for. Now this, I give you my interpretation, but it rings true across all of the academies that I know about. The freedom to innovate. Principals, head teachers who wish to innovate to bring about change. That is part of the Academy brand. The inclusive culture. I cannot for the life of me see how Sir Harold Blavatag's grammar school can actually be an academy because it's selective. And I'm about inclusion and doing the best for every child in this country, and therefore academies should be inclusive, they should not be selective. New technology. We were building billions of pounds worth of new schools under BSF. And what were we getting? Were we getting new old schools of one teacher to 30 children in boxes? The new academies, and a lot of them had an awful lot of money spent on them, were very often not fit for purpose because they went the other way. And the biggest communication on the principals, twittering, if that's the right word for it, was building walls. Right? So you create the space, then you build walls. We need to have a really long, hard think about what a school looks like today when you have new technology, where you can therefore have master teachers supported by support staff and use coaching and mentoring techniques to make learning really individualised. Distributive leadership is important. What is the point of getting away from a bureaucratic local authority control system if you've got a head teacher who's a control freak? We should be devolving down leadership throughout the school and to students, because students' voice is very important. And you ask your students, what's a good lesson? And they will tell you exactly what Ofsted are saying. The other thing I think is important is the sharing of best practice, and even the very worst school in the country will have good practice in it. And there's nothing better for a teacher than to be asked to share their practice with somebody else, or a middle leader, or a senior leader, or indeed a head teacher or a principal. It makes you feel good, you prepare thoroughly for it, therefore it's a learning experience for you as well. Curriculum restructuring has always been a part of the Academy movement. Creating a year 5 in the primary school to year 8 curriculum, because most secondaries are now starting Key Stage 4 in year 9, which then accelerates up, and in year 11 you can start AS work, and you might even start on pre-degree work in the 6th form. An opportunity to restructure schools to be more effective in an age in which all students will be staying on to the age of 18. School organisation. We believe passionately in vertical tutoring so that youngsters can actually peer mentor and peer support. And the whole independent learning personalisation agenda, how do you structure a school to deliver that? The important thing we need to keep asking ourselves is, what value are we adding when we do this as opposed to that? That as opposed to this, we should be questioning all the time. And as a very old teacher, as you can see, for me to be talking about brand is amazing, isn't it? But in fact, brand is important. What is the unique selling point of your school? When people hear its name, what does it stand for? And that's why an awful lot of academies, when they become academies under the older regime, change the name because they can establish a new brand. We have a new model of education in this country. The mould is broken and it will never go back. We have got to create a new model which is about independent learning and independent state schools, well, not isolated, because they work together in some way which is yet to be fully defined. I commend it to you, but go for the right reasons. Go because it gives you the freedom to add value to the education you're providing now and give a better deal to your kids